middle, Paul.
Yeah, that's good advice.
My prediction is the cake will spontaneously combust, and it'll just simply go up in a big puff of smoke.
Where's the fire extinguisher?
There are 9.
Scott.
Cute. All right.
Let's wait down below.
Ready?
Get out of the way.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dad. Happy birthday to you.
I have been gone for 35 years, so I don't really have any stories, but I remember one from graduate school days. We had, my memory may be wrong, we're in a car accident, and then we're driving an old station wagon they gave us, and it was in an accident, and so I borrowed my dad's car, and I think it was some kind of Chevy, and I was getting gas in it and backed up and hit something. And I got out of the car and I looked and I couldn't find anything wrong with it at all. And then I noticed that there was this perfectly symmetrical oval in the middle of the bumper. I had hit a post around the gas pump, so I just returned it to him. Like that, because I really didn't think he'd notice. He did. And I don't think he's ever loaned me a car since then. But I don't know, I've been gone a long time. Most of my stories are about Bill. Because I remember when he was a teenager, Mom called one day and she said, your brother, the only one left at home, your brother, I caught him smoking upstairs. And I said, well, what was he smoking? She said, oh my God, I never thought of that. Because I didn't think she'd be upset about someone smoking cigarettes. So, but I've been gone too long, too old, don't remember stories, but happy birthday. We're so happy that we're here to celebrate it with you.
About my experience, but I wanted to add on to what Cheryl said, is that what Cheryl doesn't know is that Dad kept that bumper with the dent in it in the roof of the garage until he moved. And it was there, I remember taking it out of the roof and thinking, oh my God, it was like 20 years after she banged that thing out. The other thing about Cheryl is that if I remember correctly, the last time Dad lent you a car, you dinged that one too, and that was a few years ago. Oh, he doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Also very much for letting me be here and enjoying the fun, and I just think you have a marvelous, marvelous family. I love my son-in-law like a son. He's wonderful, and you're just all so very nice. Thank you.
It's all
I know a
good.
few things about you too.
Yeah. We know that he knows a few of the family secrets. One of the best ones that most of you probably don't know about is when his older sister, not my mother, but Sister Dell, came down on the Sister of Mercy jet from St. Louis to Corpus Christi right after I was expelled from high school 3 months before I was going to graduate, to tell me I was going straight to hell. You know, and this is the kind of family that y'all are part of. All overachievers. Uncle Claude, you know his history well. Sister Dell, Sister Mother Provincial, and then Mom who married the doctor. And the poor doctor didn't have a chance. You know, he was always kept poor. She never let him have a spare dollar in his pocket. Every time she got a couple of bucks, went into a ranch or a piece of property, so there was no chances for any good-looking nurses. But we are tickled to death to be here. My favorite memory was when I was allowed to come on my first jet airplane ride, and I think it was 63 or 64, up here to stay with you guys. And I guess I was here for what, a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. It seemed like longer than that. It was probably 2 or 3 weeks. But it was, yeah, same thing. But it was wonderful. Ronnie was gone, so it was just the rest of you guys. And and of course your wonderful mother, Dorothy. You know, got along great with her. She never really picked on me like she did everybody else. So it was great. She was my favorite aunt, you know. But no, it's times that I treasure, and I still think about, you know, all the fun and things we did. We'd go down to the Knights of Columbus to go swim in, and you know, things like that. Just everyday things that we didn't do in Texas. You know, it was. What was that?
Didn't have any swimming pools.
We had one in the backyard, remember? But it wasn't the same. What y'all had was a family, and it was a close-knit family, and y'all did things together. I mean, at that time when I was there, Uncle Claude had the shortwave radio in the basement, and he spent hours trying to teach me the Morse code so I could become a novice radio operator, which was like, you know, 5 words an hour, right? Now Paul, he killed me. He was rattling down the deal. And this is a younger cousin, right? He's not supposed to be able to do that, an older cousin. But I never could figure it out. Could never get that 5 words a minute down in Morse code. But it was sure fun trying, Uncle Claude. You know, we did have a wonderful time. I did have a wonderful time there. And every time that we have been around them, you know, just the family, you know, all of the family, and all of y'all here. Of course, now just to get to see a lot of you. Steve and Pam Chach have visited with you in the past at Cheryl's deal and Albuquerque, and of course Adam's wedding in California. But thanks for letting us come down. I do have something that Paul's going to be very unhappy with me about, because he said no gifts, but being from Texas, we got to bring something, right? No, better than that.
Very small one.
It's money.
Talk about my dad's sterling qualities, so that by contrast, you know, you look. Most people look at their parents, and no matter what age you are, what age they are, they're old, right? And the whole concept of thinking of them as being anything like your age, or having any of the vices that you have at that young age, is almost inconceivable. And this really came home to me some years ago. Now it's quite a few years ago. Probably sometime in the last 30 or so. Dad and I were driving down the road in Clinton, Maryland, to a place called Clinton Computers to buy pieces for an Apple computer. And this goes back a ways, right? We're going down this road, and Dad points over to the side and says, you know, at that intersection there was a great bar and dance hall. And I just looked at him. Who just told me that? and it, you know, really opened up a different side of my father than this quiet, unassuming, very gentlemanly, staid type person, which is kind of like what I am in actuality. That he clearly, in his youth, had a heck of a lot more fun than I ever did. So I'm still waiting to hear the real story about the bars and the dance halls. But I suspect that, you know, somewhere back in that Texas past, he was probably a troublemaker. And I always wondered where Bill came from. Now I know.
I almost forgot. Despite this uniform, I cannot speak to his religion. I guess he's still a Catholic. But as you know, my friendship with Bill corresponds to his involvement with Alhambra, which has been a big part of his life for probably, what, 34 years, Bill?
1975.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. And he and I entered at the same time. And one of the things that always struck me about Bill over those years is that he's always been willing to work, and really never cared about recognition. I mean, he and I worked together on many things, and we've traveled together in Alhambra. But there's a saying about an individual that I always think of Bill when I hear it, and that there's no limit to the good that a person can do as long as he doesn't care who gets the credit. And I think that's pretty high praise And I always think of Bill with that, so that's my praise for him this evening.
Have no anxiety just because you're being recorded.
Okay, okay. There you
Just
go.
go ahead, let it flow.
Wow, there are a lot of people out there. My fondest memories of this family is down in Texas. They used to come down almost every year, it seemed like. Used to always go to the beach. We had a lot of fun with them. Always good people. The only thing that was really bad was when Dorothy and my mother would get together and start telling us where to move furniture. You guys know. You've been there. Now there's a picture that's on this thing when it floats around. We came up to visit Bill last year. I think it was last year or the year before. And he was Uncle Claude. And he was such a great host. I mean, we hated to leave, but we were skinny when we got here. And when you see this picture float around of us, we're fat. Thank you, Bill.
You've heard about Chicago and our governor? It's true. My mother was Dorothy's sister. And Janice, who won't come up and say anything, she's in the back. Her mother was Dorothy's sister. Now, there's been a family feud going on. I insist I was the favorite niece, and Janice insists she was the favorite niece. So it was always a tie, but it was always, always so much fun to come out and visit. I can remember coming out when I wasn't really too old, and at my family house, you ate supper at 5 o'clock. And at the Fuchsia's house, at 5 to 5:30, you had cocktails, and 7:30 you ate supper. I thought that was the most fabulous lifestyle you ever saw in your life. Yeah.
Anna and you, and we're going out to dinner, and you always open the door for Anna, and I'm like, making me look bad. Yep, that's all.
I just, as you all know, I grew up outside, most of you know, Buffalo, New York. And so do I decide it'd be convenient to have our wedding in December in Buffalo, New York.
December 31st.
And in Buffalo, actually, but as opposed to Waitsville. But I had told all my wonderful in-laws now, and I knew there was, you know, they would, if they'd done this, that they had accepted me. And said, oh, we're going to have the wedding up there. They drove up. I never heard, you know what it said a bad word about it. We hear about it now. But even I'm the one that brings it up. But Dad came up, drove up with Sister Adele and Mom, and went up to the wedding, and they had a good time. But it was, you know, I think it was a sacrifice for most people who went there, but they did it. They did it because
And it snowed before the 31st.
in a blizzard. Yes, it did. And it, you know, even a friend got in an accident. But one side I'd like to mention about the wedding. So I thank you so much for accepting me and doing that for me. But I also remember at our wedding, I had, you know how we take the garter off the woman's leg. Well, I had put it up, and I had my leg up. My children can hear this. Leg up in the air, and Rick's taking off, but he's looking elsewhere. And Dad says, I can't believe it. She's got her leg thing out there, and he's looking at every picture. I guess he was looking at the leg. So thank you, Deb.
I just wanted to say, Uncle Claude, you've been so good to me these past times, and I just wanted to say you're the best Uncle Claude. Thank you.
The end event here is, of course, the award to the top speaker.
Ask the judges.
Do you guys get that at home too? Your wife telling you what to do?
No, I never get advice.
It runs in the family.
You can override the judges though. Simon Kettle.
So, deferring this decision to our panel of our highly intellectual and skilled judges, if you could please advise advise us on who wins the award.
Now remember, you both have to go home with me.
Consult.
Consult.
I think I was pretty good.
Be exceptionally nice for me. I'm going to tell a story about 1965, and probably the only one besides Dad here who will remember that is Cheryl, and she may not even remember this, but in 1965, I think we got our first new car. Okay? Up until then, we'd always gotten old cars, and I finally remember getting piled in the car and driving down to Texas each year, and Mom complaining constantly, the kids in the back seat whining, when are we going to get there, and all that kind of stuff. I think the car broke down every trip as far as I remember, one way or another, a flat tire or engine hose or something like that on every trip we went down there. And we had a great time when we were down there, but nobody looked forward to the time coming back. But anyway, in 1965, he was going to get a new car. And we decided on a 1965 Dodge Dart. And at the time, I was pressuring him fairly severely to get a 4-on-the-floor stick shift, first shifter. You remember that, don't you, Dad? I sure do. Well, he had graduated to automatics quite a few years before that and had no interest in getting a stick shift, but he got that stick shift because I was going to be there in that car, and I wanted it. So I appreciate that, Dad, even though shortly after you got the car, I left and you were stuck with the stick shift. And you've been stuck with the stick since then, haven't you?
It's been hit with this stick.
But not only that, you bought your little first car right after that. So here I was stuck with it. 4 on the floor. And mine had 4 on the floor too. It was a Sunbeam Alpine. And I had great fun in that until I realized that British sports cars are not where you want to go, and anybody who's thinking about one, cross it off your list. Tickets down there in Greene County for speeding. Advice sparingly, and I placed no value on that advice. It seemed to me that it was just some sort of ignorant old guy who was talking to me. And I want to tell you, Dad, that that's changed. I now know that you're not just an ignorant guy. I get the message. And so I would like to propose a toast to your 90 years and all the good advice you've given me over the years, and I'm sorry I've ignored most of it. I do want to say I've wondered for these years where that advice came from, and I know that after I married Sally, she explained to me that it came from your Texas roots. Yes. Those of you who are from Texas know that no Texan would attend a function like this without wearing a hat. So, here's to Bill the Texan. I'll drink to that.
Great party, and I'm still trying to figure out whether I'm supposed to thank them or go the other way. What I would like to say, we've all heard that we can choose our friends, but we can't choose our relatives. Well, I could tell you tonight, and through all my memories, if I had my choice, I would choose all my relatives as my friends too, and I hope you are, and you certainly have shown it here to me tonight. And I want to thank all of you, I want to thank everyone for all their hard work, and the kind words and the innuendos, and, but it has been a delightful evening for me, and I don't feel any 90. I feel more like, well, 61. But I do want to thank all of you for all of your kindness, and I just am overwhelmed and honored that people came from so far, the Texas group, the Chicago group, the Across the Potomac group, you know, and everybody. And thank you so much, and I hope we could do something like this again, but maybe for somebody else. Thank you.